And hello, everyone, and welcome to your local Cowboy radio broadcast. With President Biden speaking at his first press conference last night, there are some things I feel the need to discuss. First, I have to ask, how can anyone still possibly supporting him at this point? Even though he was coached through the questions and pre-fed the fluff piece questions, he still managed to land multiple catastrophic gaffes. Whether it was failing to follow through on responses or struggling to overcome his newfound stutter, the man could not keep up. There were a couple particular moments that stood out to me, specifically when asked whether or not he'd be running for re-election, and he couldn't even give a yes or no answer. Instead, he resorted to saying he's a man of fate and can't read the future, further asking the reporter if they could. When asked about the border crisis, he couldn't even give a solid response besides things will get better, or explaining why Trump was bad, completely ignoring the insane surges in foot traffic across the border and defending their revoking of Trump-era policies, one being the Stay in Mexico policy, where migrants would have to remain in Mexico until their asylum requests could be processed. It should be noted that most people who do travel here do not have legitimate reasons to seek asylum, though some do. It's not a good idea to encourage large numbers of people to travel on foot across the desert trying to avoid the cartel, much just stay alive. Though it would be nice if we'd be able to help all of these people, we cannot expect the government to be genuine with their humanitarian aid. There is no transparency, and there are malicious intentions for wanting to bring illegal migrants into the United States. Just think about it. A class of civilians that isn't protected as a citizen, who you don't have to pay legitimate wages, and who you can force around the country with the constant threat of deportation, especially when it comes to children. Most people don't realize how evil humans can be, or rather how widespread that evil can be. We have a black market for child trafficking and exploitation in this country, and who is an easier target than some kid from Ecuador who has no connections or resources, not to mention the drugs and guns that come across the border constantly, and how the cartels use the migrating caravans as cover, so border patrols caught up managing them while they sneak their VIPs and illicits across the border. So for the Biden administration to come out and claim they're making morally correct decisions is just bullshit. The whole kids in cages problem still exists. It's existed for a long time, and it gets worse when you let anyone enter and stick them in overcrowded facilities where they'll oftentimes be taken advantage of. Encouraging these people to come by telling them all children are accepted is just a play. It'd be better in most cases for these people to remain in their country and work towards making them better. Should we be the ones making them better? I'm not so sure, solely based on our government's track record of making things better in foreign countries, though not stripping these places of their intellectual and financial capabilities would be a great start. A good example of this that is happening is our government, along with the Bill Gates, is funding a program in Colombia whose mission is to kill coca plants by spraying a Monsanto pesticide over the fields. Even though for years there have been complaints of the environmental damage and health risks being caused by the spraying, to offer some quick fairness, there has been a steep rise in the cocoa farms, which is home to the world's largest source of cocaine, though I'm not sure how spraying the fields has become the best solution, as if they won't find better ways to hide their plants. What we should really be doing is putting an end to the drug war so we can strip the cartels of a huge source of their income. Though, of course, the CIA needs the cocaine profits, otherwise how else would they fund their international blackout missions? Biden also managed to completely sidestep the question on guns. On his website and through statements, he made it clear they intend to implement stricter gun control laws, invoking a ban on what they're calling assault weapons and on high-capacity magazines. The problem is there is no clear definition of what an assault weapon is. Definitions vary widely depending on what state you're in, sometimes directly contradicting each other. And honestly, when you look at all the laws that are in place, it seems more focused on making the law so nuanced that they can wrap up as many gun owners under one net to reduce their power leverage over them. This is a huge issue for Americans, and the fact that current laws already violate the Constitution set a lot of tension on the topic. Taking this back to the cartels, it must be realized that just like the war on drugs, banning firearms will only bolster and further empower international smuggling groups who sell guns on the black market. So by banning guns in country, and then by simultaneously refusing to enforce strict border regulations, you'll create a crime wave unlike anything we've seen thus far. The guns will still get in, and the people who get a hold of them are not the people who are willing to go and get them illegally. Instead, they'll be in the hands of gangs and domestic terrorists who will no longer have any fear of the common citizen because they know they won't be armed. Just take the time to look at the citizens of Myanmar and Venezuela are going through, having to fight their government with rocks and sticks because they've all been disarmed. And if you don't believe our government would do the same to us, you're missing some very important historical context. People don't seem to understand that we still live in a rather primitive world. This isn't the hyper-successful post-scarcity society I hear so much about from the media liberal elites. Just because we managed to scrape together a few years, not even a century of mostly peace, doesn't mean that we're not still swimming in a millennium of turmoil and shit. It's not like our politicians and political thinkers don't realize this either. They just understand that they can use the hypothetical moral high ground to manipulate the more emotional aspects of our society, especially those who tend to be more empathetic. They're much easier to push a humanitarian agenda on, which has its ups and downs, don't worry. The elite of this country, the neocons and neolibs, as well as aspects of Hollywood and the media, are towing the line of what is obviously some sort of globalistic agenda, which is very much so communistic in nature. It must also be recognized that Joe Biden is not the primary actor of this administration. I wouldn't even say it's Kamala either. It's someone in the deep state that has been in operation since possibly as early as World War II. What they want is to specialize the planet and make a world so interconnected that countries will be forced to rely upon each other, similar to the way the ancient Bronze Age world worked, though a lot more centralized and authoritarian. I don't know about you, but it makes me ask the question, to what end? What are the driving factors behind the world's leaders? Is it the environmental threat like that of climate change, or some sort of outside unknown threat? Aliens, maybe? Or are the people at the top of the game so incompetent and so bloated that they have lost the ability to steer the ship? And then we have to wonder if they ever even could. Joe Biden is not at all what we need right now. He's weak, he's past his time, and he is not in control. Would Trump be better right now? I'd personally say so, though ultimately, he's not ideal either, but when have we ever had an ideal lot to pick from? Not in my lifetime, at least. Regardless, the elections are over, and all we can do is move forward with what we have. That being Biden, until they decide it's Kamala's turn and push him down a flight of stairs. With the recent ballistic missile launches from North Korea and our failed diplomatic meetings in Anchorage, with China going sour, we're not off to a great start. I mean, when asked about North Korea, the best he could do was stumble through some pre-written statements on his podium. No solid answers, no retaliations, just vague innuendos and cookie-cutter responses, obviously all written down for him ahead of time. If you're able to understand the implications, it can actually be quite a bit chilling to watch the supposed leader of the free world flop on his face. This was just his first press conference, too. He hasn't even given a State of the Union address yet, so I imagine we're in for a lot of good highlight reel content out of the guy in the upcoming years. That is, if he even makes it that far. Anyway, as always here on Cowboy Radio, we'll continue to keep a close eye on the situation, and I will report back here what it is we find. I thank you all for tuning in this evening, and I'll see you all next time on the next Cowboy Radio broadcast.